Tuning in 6-3 podcast. I'm your host, Joel, and my co-host, Ben. We apologize for being absent last week. Um, stuff happens. Stuff happens.
Life.
Life.
Yeah.
Dads, being a dad, that stuff happens. Yeah.
Yep.
So we're not going to go back and recap two games. We're just going to recap the last game against the Panthers and the last game against Minnesota. And then we'll preview the following games for the Buccaneers and Indiana Hoosiers. So let's start with Michigan football. They just took down Minnesota even-handedly. So it is interesting. The thing that I'm kind of seeing, I mean, not only the benefit of getting Harbaugh back on the sidelines, but they continue to take another step forward against Big Ten talent now after, maybe just cruising. I mean, still winning handedly, but almost just cruising against like the East Carolinas, the Bowling Greens, of the world. Like here they are now playing Rutgers and Nebraska and Minnesota and just beating them handedly. And I know we aren't considering those teams to be top tier Big Ten teams, but Big Ten teams are still better than the East Carolina teams and the Bowling Green teams, right?
Yeah.
So that's something to consider, and I think that bodes well when they come and play Indiana. But Ben, what were your thoughts on the Minnesota game?
Yeah, I mean, I think most of these teams have something they do pretty darn well, right? And what you kind of want to see is like Michigan kind of like taking a team out of what they want to do really well and kind of putting them in a box and making them play Michigan style. I mean, against Minnesota really couldn't do anything. They hit the one pass, pretty good throw.
Zach Evans had like a drive or two where he was running
a drive
well.
or two, yeah. And then Minnesota did some things tactically that were pretty smart, but Michigan kind of adjusted pretty quickly, and it was kind of over from there. Helps when the second play of the game is a pick six. That is a bonus. But I like that they're kind of different than last year. Remember, last year's teams would kind of they would let teams hang around in the first half and then just completely annihilate them in the second half. Well, this year they're kind of just annihilating teams all the way through. I mean, they've started out fast in pretty much every game. And they really
offensively, first halves now they're starting pretty well, and defensively in the third quarter, still no one scored a touchdown on them.
Scored a touchdown. Only one team has scored a touchdown on the first team defense all year, and that was Minnesota. That was it. Right, that was the most points they've given up all year in a game was 10. So I think we kind of both hit on this, and I think I talked about it quite a bit before the year. I was like, I just don't really see a whole lot of teams, at least especially early on, scoring on this team. It just doesn't happen. It's just not. They don't have the horses or the athletes, the offensive lines. Really, they just don't have the ability to block these guys up front. Mason Graham had a ridiculous game. He led the team in tackles as a
glad to have him back,
which is great. He did it with one hand, which is nuts.
Yeah, he's got a club.
Yep. So, I mean, I don't really take things away. I'm not going to necessarily, other than Graham, and Will Johnson also had a really nice game, especially after, he's still working his way back from that injury too, which is nice to see. The pass defense was probably the best it's been all year, which is really good to see. Because that was kind of not necessarily a question mark, but it was just like, okay, like, let's take that step now, guys. Now, especially now that we got kind of everybody back healthy, you got to kind of get everybody playing well now. So that was good to see. I don't really have any complaints. I know some people will say, oh, like the stretch plays early on, but whatever. They shut those down eventually pretty quickly after two drives or so. The one deep pass, I mean, Keon Sabb probably should have gotten there as a safety. He just kind of got nosy and didn't get deep enough. And it was a good throw. And I mean, sometimes you just get beat every once in a while. Like good throw. Not terrible coverage. I mean, it just kind of was one of those things. I don't have really anything to complain about. Overall, I mean, the offense is efficient. JJ running the ball. I mean, I know you've been calling for him running the ball more and more.
And it's worked out, yeah.
Last two seasons, right? And really, I'm cool with. I mean, they sprinkled it in just perfect amount, right? I think he had 5 carries, right? 5 or 6 carries. They don't need to do more than that.
And I think, and 2 of them were. I mean, he did it. Yeah. I think my big thing is settling now with Ladarius Henderson too at tackle.
Yes.
I think I'm seeing a huge improvement from Miles Hinton. but then even just like not even freaking out if like even one guy goes down. Like I posted on X the other day on just the depth of this Michigan offensive line. I'm like, how
Yeah.
essentially their third team is, you know, Jeff Percy and Raheem Anderson and Tristan Bounds, Connor Jones, uh, and uh, Andrew Gentry is on that third team even. So it's like that's deep.
Yeah.
I think
I
those
wouldn't
that
hate.
that
I mean,
third team
none of those
that third
guys are
team is better
necessarily
than
ready.
Minnesota's line.
Yeah, I would agree. None of those guys are necessarily ready, but I
Mhm.
wouldn't hate it if they had to play. If they had to play, it wouldn't be like the end of the world. They'd
It
figure it
wouldn't
out.
feel like, I mean, it would be the weak link on the line, but if like just one
100%.
guy goes out and they got to step a guy in, like it's like,
Yeah. Well, on the
and the
second
second
team line, I'm not worried about it all. Like, I mean, you got Hinton out there
Trente
now,
Jones and
Trente
Miles
Jones,
Hinton,
uh,
uh,
Greg Crippen at center,
El Hadi, yeah,
Hottie. Yep. I mean, Gentry actually played a little bit with the second team this week
yeah,
too at left tackle though. He was playing tackle, which is good. So I'm not remotely worried about them up front. Um, I don't think they're quite as good as last year. I will say that, but I do think um, they're not going to be that far off by the end of the year. I think
pretty
they,
spoiled the last couple of years, so it's
yeah,
okay if we take a little step back, right?
yeah, and I think having a quarterback like JJ that can like escape pressure and like handle that type of thing. He's also doing a great job of getting like the setting the protection. You saw them that touchdown to Loveland, like he changed the protection and got the blitz picked up and was able to have enough time to find Loveland up for a touchdown. Like JJ's advanced in that level too. That helps the offensive line out a lot. Um, so yeah, I mean I don't know. I don't have any complaints at this point. I know they haven't played. You can say they haven't played anybody, and that's fine, and that's valid for the most part, right? But at the end of the day, uh, I mean, Georgia hadn't really played anybody either. I know Kentucky had a 20 next to their name this past week, but they aren't that great. There's other teams that haven't really played a whole lot of great teams, right? Ohio State played Notre Dame, but then Notre Dame goes out there and gets pushed around by Louisville for an entire game for the most part. Pretty much gets
No,
smoked.
Louisville we thought was a little bit of a sleeper team going into the year.
Louisville is good, right? I'm not saying they're not, but like it's not uh any given day, like you could go out there and lay an egg, right? But Michigan is just consistent. They've been consistent for 3 years, 2.5 years going on now, right? Extremely consistent, and they just punish you and they don't give you a chance to they don't give you anything. They're the least penalized team in the entire country. They've one penalty the last 2 games. That is
And
insane.
and that's just so weird because I feel like it is maybe aging myself a little bit, but the Courtney Avery days and the Bobakar Sissoko days and the JT Floyd days, I remember PIs all the time.
Yeah, they don't pick up penalties, right? And that's a sign of a well-coached team and a team that buys in and cares about, winning for the team and they're not selfish. They don't have any of that, right? And yeah, I mean, I guess like you look there and you say, okay, like some of these the numbers, the individual numbers aren't insane, right? Even JJ's individual numbers aren't nuts, right? They're
Mhm.
very good, but they're not crazy, right? But the reason is he hasn't even played in the fourth quarter. I don't think he's played one drive in the fourth quarter all season. So uh,
He has time
I
to make out with his girlfriend on the sideline. He doesn't.
right in
He's
the fourth
fine.
quarter of games. That's what we're doing,
Yeah.
and that's what we're doing here. That's how bad these games have been blowouts. Um, but at the end of the day, I don't think they care about that. I mean, I think they've got bigger minds, bigger goals in mind. And that's cool to see because that's pretty rare in any sport nowadays. I mean, you see it a lot in professional sports when a team kind of gets rolling.
Mhm.
You don't really see that as much in college sports just because it's hard. You've got young kids with egos and other things going on, and they found a way to kind of make this culture work really well.
I
And
think
I
it's
don't.
been a genius thing by Harbaugh to continue to rest guys while you even have like a substantial lead. Like I mean, most times you just want to keep giving your guys reps as the season progresses. But like in this case, I think there's a little bit of a growing concern about how Michigan's going to look in 2024. Right? They're adding more talent to the Big Ten.
Mhm.
They're going to lose a lot of guys to the draft this year. And I
Probably
think
like
that
15, maybe more.
yeah, but
I would.
but to give
Yeah.
these guys reps
Mhm.
because they are going to be the future of this team. It's
Yeah.
like I think it's still a valuable thing to do.
I
So,
think
and I
it's
think
more
that's why he's
valuable. I think it's more valuable than playing some of the other guys deeper into games just to rack up some stats, right? Now, there's the question is you wonder, okay, what if they do get into a 4-quarter game against a Penn State or an Ohio State or something like that? Can they handle it? But like all these guys that would be playing at that point have been there before, right? They have played deep into a game. They have played 4-quarter games, knocked down, drag out games, right? They've done it all already. So I'm not that concerned about it. I mean, and you can't really complain if they're just blowing teams out. You can't complain, you know what I mean? I mean, at the end of the day, like Jack Tuttle needs to be ready just in case he has to play in some meaningful snaps. I hope
and Jaden Denegal, even. Yeah.
Right. Like these guys have to be ready. So right. And you've seen actual gradual improvement from the second and third team, especially on offense, I'd say. The defense.
Yeah, defense is a little gappy, yeah.
Second team defense is still pretty good, but like the third and fourth, I mean, they're not good. But that's fine. Right. I mean, at that point, like
if you've lost that many guys on defense, just don't worry about it.
We got other problems at that point.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't have any complaints. To this point in the season, they're 6-0. I mean, we can preview Indiana. They're gonna be 7-0. And they'll probably be
not according to Urban Meyer.
Yeah, well, Urban Meyer is on drugs.
Oh, is he now? I guess it's better than being on college co-eds, right?
Yeah, well, he's on both. So he's crazy if he thinks they're
I don't know if he just said it's a trap game. And I'm like, all right, buddy.
Against Indiana, is that what he said?
Yeah, he said Indiana game's a trap game.
Is he high? He's also the guy who said that Nebraska was going to be a test. Nebraska was like
they really tested our walk-ons.
They say, what did they test? Like, I mean, he thought it was going to be a close game. Like, is he crazy?
I
don't think there's no. To me, this team is too locked in, right? And Indiana sometimes gives them some problems. Don't get me wrong. So maybe because Indiana plays hard, and maybe they'll annoy.
I think Taven Jackson's gonna be running for his life.
I don't think they can block anybody in that front.
They have a really bad O-line in every game in the NFL.
Horrendously bad.
Like this might be the worst in the Big Ten. It might be the worst in the Big Ten.
Yeah, Nebraska's isn't good either.
There's like Nebraska's like a guy or two though. Where it's like, all right, they're reliable. Indiana, maybe one guy.
Indiana's might be the worst. I agree.
So Taven Jackson, poor guy's gonna be running for his life. So just contain the edge. But the other thing that I was going to point out and kind of contain the edge is just how this O-line doesn't stand a chance against this fresh body of work that Michigan keep throwing out there. So much depth on that defensive line. Like I was looking,
hitting like 10 guys, which is nuts.
So there's 3, 6, 9 guys on the defensive line that have at least 95 snaps or more in these 6 games so far. And that includes Mason Graham, Chris Jenkins, Derek Moore, Josiah Stewart, who's really hitting his stride now. We're starting to see some real progress there.
Sacks now. Yep.
Yeah, and I think he's only getting better. It's kind of like watching Yabioki last year, like start really slow, pick it up. And then Kenneth Grant, Braden McGregor, Rayshon Benny, Jalen Harrell, Cam Good is getting time, and TJ Guy is at 95 snaps. So it's a fresh load of work for some of these guys, and they can constantly cycle and do.
Like last year when Good got in, I was like, oh great, he's not good.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's a certainly passable defensive. I mean, there is a drop off, don't get me wrong, like from a Jenkins and Graham front, like those guys.
He's a space filler. That's what he is. He's massive. Right. He's a big dude.
And then even Grant is a monster, so he's been kind of like 1C to those guys, right, for most of the year. But there is a drop off certainly from the top 2 dudes, but like the fact
Rayshon Benny is like 4, right? You'd probably say Rayshon's 4.
Probably 4th, yeah. But like the fact that those guys are still like I think I can't remember what podcast I was listening to, but they were like, yeah, okay, the drop off is like borderline all Big Ten level instead of all American. Like it's not a prop, like you know what I'm saying? Like it's not really like that big of a drop off. It's still fine. So I'm not. Again, that it is nuts the depth that they have up there, and that's the best part about this team, in my opinion. The depth all over the place is great. The offensive line depth, we already kind of hit on that, but the depth on both lines is insane.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm looking at the snap counts here too, and it's just like, all right, even Cameron Brandt's playing in there. Trey Pierce is in it. Reese Atterbury is getting some time in there. And even if they wanted Reese Atterbury in a tight spot on the offensive line, he's there, right? I mean, they're pretty much golden in the trenches. And so I think, again, that's going to be another reason they're just going to roll right over Indiana. Michigan's been down in all season. They've outscored their opponents 224-40, and yet they're only 2-3-1 against the spread. So it's really not a surprise, though, that 2 games that they have covered have come with Jim Harbaugh on the sidelines.
Yeah, and the other thing is too, I think some of the spreads, especially early, were pretty absurd. Like
52 points. Yeah, if you're winning by 50,
that is pretty. Like, you're not winning by that. Maybe you are. I mean, if they wanted to, they could have, right? But to your point, they're just playing a lot of these other guys, and the games aren't getting crazy out. I mean, they're out of hand, but they're not like absurdly out of hand. You know what I mean? So it's
yeah. I mean, and once again, the defense is one of the best in the country. I think it looks like they're 3rd in total defense. They're 12th in yards per play allowed, and against the pass, they're even better. They're 2nd, giving up 142.5 passing yards a game. So I think Indiana's going to have a borderline impossible time trying to move the ball. Like, they're 115th in yards per play, and they gain just 5.0 yards between their 3 quarterbacks they've thrown out, with their Taven Jackson, Sorsby, and Brock Lowry. 4 touchdowns to 3 picks. Like, it's not been good for their offense either. And like I said, Michigan just seems to be taking steps on steps against better talent. I mean, Big Ten talent now. So I think you could argue you could take the spread again this week. Now that Jim Harbaugh's back, I take the spread for sure.
What is it?
Oh, what is it? What is it? It is, let me pull it up. I had it right there. Hang on. 33.5.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. It's at home again. They're back home now.
Could be 34-0, honestly. But they're gonna give up a garbage score.
Yeah. And I think the offense is also just so efficient. Like, Indiana's going to try to bleed the clock out, right? And try to keep Michigan's offense off the field, I think. But this offense is just efficient. They'll just wear you out, right? And, you've got a 3-headed monster now at running back. Donovan Edwards looks good. I think he actually legitimately looks good now. I'm just waiting on him to break a long one, but, like, it'll come. Blake Corum looks pretty much back to normal. And then Kalel Mullings is a weapon, JJ leads the country in QBR. Like, he's like 3rd in the country.
What is it with the state of Michigan, their quarterbacks? Jared Goff, too.
I know. And then he's like 3rd in the country in completion percentage. He's still at like 77% or something like that. So I know he's not throwing a ton of passes.
I mean, you take away that Bowling Green game and he's A1.
Yeah, you take that away. If he had just like a regular game, like his 220 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns game that he keeps putting up lately, like, he'd probably be a Heisman candidate anyway. If we're honest, he's not going to win it just because the stats aren't going to be there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I got no complaints about this team. This team is fun to watch.
All right, so predictions for the Indiana Michigan game. I'm thinking I'm gonna go 41-3 Michigan.
I'll give Indiana 1 touchdown. There's enough tape out there. It's really hard to keep a team out of the end zone. There's enough tape. I think they'll have something that works at some point. Something dumb, like maybe a trick play or something.
We have our walk-ons in again.
Yeah, or maybe it's late, right? They score on the 4th string defense or something like that. If that happens, then okay. But I will go. I think Michigan's going to kind of keep on a groove offensively, though. So I'm going to go 56-10.
56-10.
I'll give them a field goal on the starters and maybe a late touchdown.
Fair point then.
56 is going to be hard to hit, though.
What's that?
56 is going to be hard to hit with the new clock rules, and Michigan doesn't like necessarily hurry it up. So
I know, and they run the ball so efficiently. They're just going to
they're going to need to hit some big plays because that's how they got to 52. I mean, 2 picks.
Probably a defensive score, at least good defensive field position.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, let's talk about the Detroit Lions. They've just finished demolishing the Panthers, giving them payback for last year's record-setting offensive game for the Panthers run game with the likes of Deontay Foreman and Chuba Hubbard. This year, it didn't look like Chuba and Miles Sanders found that same kind of running room. The Lions, I think, are first in run defense in the league. And I was looking at PFF grades, and the Lions are pretty much their players are near the top in almost everything. I'm going to see if I can quick pull up where they were sitting at, but kind of absurd. Here it is. Yeah. So Jared Goff is first of 33 quarterbacks in PFF. And again, I'm not a PFF guy all the time. I think there's some flaws in their grading system.
I don't like their offensive and defensive line grades, but I like their quarterback grades. Actually, I think their quarterback grades.
They're not bad. They're pretty close. But their offensive line, and then Graham Glasgow is second of 78 guards.
Yep.
Frank Ragnow, second of 37 centers. Hal Vaitai, fourth of 78 guards. So you have the second, fourth guard.
Yep.
Your tackle, Penei Sewell, is fifth of 72 tackles.
Yep.
Sam Laporta as a rookie tight end is fourth of 68 tight ends. Josh Reynolds is ahead of Amon-Ra St. Brown as 12th of 110 wide receivers. Amon-Ra's right behind him.
He's been really good.
Amon-Ra's been at 13, so it's 12 and 13. And then 18th wide receiver is Khalif Raymond. So who filled in admirably with the Amon-Ra being out. You feel like you don't really lose a ton when Amon-Ra is out with Khalif Raymond.
I think you lose against the better teams. Amon-Ra is always open, right?
His route running's A1, yeah. But like Khalif Raymond has the work ethic, plays really hard, and he tries to actually like resemble his game after Amon-Ra. He always is raving about how hard he works. And he's like, I'm trying to get that. So, and then we get David Montgomery, who's 14th of 53 running backs. So just loaded up and down. Taylor Decker, 38th of 72 tackles. Jonah Jackson, 28th of 78 guards. Jahmyr Gibbs is towards the bottom there. He's 41st of 53 running backs. But they've got so much talent. And that's not even discussing how Cam Sutton is towards the top at the corner position. So really good things. Aiden Hutchinson at the top for edge. So
he also leads the NFL in pressures.
Yeah, by I think 38 or something. It's already like 38 pressures or something.
Yeah, I think TJ Watt's second. He's at like 32 or something like that. I think
Aiden was like 7 more in 5 games. It's crazy.
Which is insane.
And you watch Aiden, if you just focus on Aiden, like you can see half the time he's getting held.
Yep.
So really fun time to be a Lions fan. It's like starting to pay off for all the sufferable years that we've had. But I felt really good about watching that game against the Panthers. They had the game in the bag the entire time. Like even when the Panthers, I think, pulled ahead. I think Panthers had a lead early on in the first quarter.
Yeah, it was early.
I think we had a turnover pretty early on with the pick, right? I think Goff threw a pick.
No,
I'm trying to remember exactly how that went down. But
I was against Green Bay. So the week before he threw the pick against Green Bay.
And Green Bay scored first, right?
Green Bay scored, and then it was like, oh crap! But then we went right down the field. I don't think the Panthers ever took the lead. We came out like gangbusters. We were up 14.
Okay, no, closest they got was 14-7.
Yep.
And that was after the Tommy Tremble 1-yard goal line pass from Bryce Young.
Yep.
So yeah, it started out right away with a David Montgomery 42-yard run.
Yep.
And then Sam Laporta's had 2 touchdown catches in that game. What a win.
Yeah.
Sam Laporta's been.
Laporta's been awesome. Jack Campbell's making plays. This team, I like what they do with Jack Campbell. Like next time you get a chance, like just watch what they do when Campbell, like they're having him play like some edge.
Like he also plays like a roaming shallow safety sometimes.
Yeah, they've got him doing all kinds of crazy stuff and then they don't have to switch personnel because he can drop down and play middle linebacker without a problem. Like they got him doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Derek Barnes is a player now. Like
where did that come from? Like
3 years ago,
Rodrigo didn't even get a snap, a defensive snap in that last game.
But now Rodrigo is just making every tackle on kickoff, like every tackle. He makes every single tackle.
Between him and Chase Lucas, right?
Yeah. This team is legitimately. This team is fun. This team is a fun team to watch, and like I understand. And the best part about it is like their strength. You see their strength of schedule going forward is 31st in the NFL. 31st going forward.
I mean, they get to play 5
And
more
that could
games.
change. That doesn't get, you know, it
They have
changes.
5 more games against the NFC North, which is proving to be just terrible.
Horrendous. Like this team, if this team doesn't win the North, they went wrong somewhere. Like Jared Goff,
Something fell apart, it's more than injuries at that point because the Lions are still proving, even with injuries, next man up mentality. They play hard.
Yep.
So it's been, I've never been so excited, and it's really frustrating almost to think about like that Seahawks game. It's like, oh man, an overtime loss. They pulled themselves back together after they like played so horribly on defense. You know, every team
that was like an anomaly, and Seahawks might be pretty good.
Seahawks may be a fringe playoff team as it is,
but they played so poorly that game, and I think didn't kind of be able to circle the wagons a little bit, and then just kind of refocus on what they need to do. It was nice to see because they've dominated defensively, and they granted some not great teams, right? But you can only play who's on your schedule. You can only play who's in front of you, and in the NFL, like anybody,
it's still the NFL. There's no gimmies.
Anybody can beat you. There's some bad teams, including the Panthers. They are not good, but anybody can beat you.
Yeah, I mean, and we're looking ahead there at Tampa Bay, and they are overachieving by most people's standards. They're 3-1. They pretty much already have a winner, 1 win shy of what I predicted they'd finish with the year.
Yeah. I thought they'd have a top 5 pick, and now I'm thinking they probably won't.
Well, I think part of it's like I thought Baker Mayfield was going to be cheeks, but he's been efficient.
Yep.
And I mean, the running game is where they're really struggling. Rashad White's their leading running rusher right now, but he's found the end zone once. I think I think they have 2 rushing touchdowns all year. Yeah. Mike Evans has been their playmaker again on offense. How consistent he's been every single year.
He worries me. That's what I worry about this entire.
But he did not practice. He's the one guy that did not practice. And again, it could be a rest situation, but it does indicate on the injury report that he is dealing with a hamstring, which is potentially the same thing that could keep Jahmyr Gibbs out again for another game. Right now, the Lions injury report is significantly worse than the Bucs. Obviously, the Bucs just got a really early bye week, so they're coming off that. That does help them. But Brian Branch did not practice. Jahmyr Gibbs did not practice. Jonah Jackson, no practice. And then there's a couple guys where it's like, okay, they're probably going to go on IR. They have Emmanuel Mosley as did not practice, and same with Bam Knight. I think he's going to have a broken collarbone. It says shoulder injury, but yeah, I mean, he looked like cut collarbone when I first saw it happen. So both those guys could probably go IR, and then you get Decker and St. Brown already back for limited practice on a Wednesday. That's pretty good. And then they're just resting Frank Ragnow, and then you get Khalil Dorsey, who's been pretty nice on special teams.
I worry. The worry for me in this game is Todd Bowles' defenses are really good, and this Tampa Bay defense is good. Like they're legitimately good. So this will be a test for the Lions offense. We've been kind of rolling along here against some bad teams. Like this will be a legitimate test.
What do they have? They have the longest active streak of games with 20 points or more scored in the NFL.
Yep.
I think they do. I think the 49ers are second with like 9, and I think the Lions have 14 straight.
Yep.
So I don't. This could be where it stops. This could be where it stops. But
if you score over 20 against this Tampa Bay team, I feel pretty good about you beating them. Right. With the way the Lions.
I don't think they're putting up 20. I don't think they're putting up 20. Maybe they might be at 20 tops.
If their defense scores, they can put up 20. But if they don't, then yeah.
I guess What are the major keys to the game here?
I think Lions need to be efficient in the run game to keep them on schedule. I think that's pretty clear. They don't need to be explosive. It's nice if Montgomery can rip off like a 40-yard touchdown, but I just don't see that happening. You got to stay on schedule because you can't get in 3rd and longs against this team. They'll get after you. The pass rush will kill Goff if that's the case. And then he's not great under pressure. Most QBs aren't, if we're being honest. But Goff off schedule and not on time is not a great QB. He's just not. Now, most of the time he's on schedule, on time, and everything looks really good, right? He knows his offense, everything looks great. But like the few times he's struggled this year, not really struggled for entire games, but like for drives or anything like that, have been when he's had guys in his face and he hasn't been able to step up, or he hasn't been able to have enough time to get to his second or third read. And if he's playing kind of not on schedule, we're gonna have problems. And then
Yeah.
on defense, I think it's the same old, same old. Like contain Mike Evans if he's fully healthy and playing, and so you got to find a way to take him away. That's easier said than done, even for really good DBs. And then just get after the quarterback, get after Mayfield, get them off schedule, because then I feel really good about our pass rush.
Yeah, I'm kind of on board with that. David Montgomery can rip off another one, I think, here, but I'm kind of wondering how I feel about him just being such a workhorse. Obviously, now Gibbs being hurt is more of a reason to be the workhorse, and he's been effective as the workhorse. How long is that sustainable?
I mean, I think they need to get Gibbs back, and then if they can get Gibbs back to take some off of him, that would be ideal.
I think it was encouraging though last week to see Craig Reynolds just came in and took care of business too. It was really cool to even see Montgomery be like, stay in there and get your touchdown.
Yeah.
But I know Montgomery was gassed. There were so many plays last week where it's like, okay, they had to come get Bam Knight in there and they put Reynolds in there for a second just to give him a break. But I don't know if it's sustainable long term. And I think if you are going to be a playoff team, you're really going to want David Montgomery. There's your running back. And hopefully, obviously, who knows how long these hamstring injuries with Gibbs linger. So it was a fluky thing that happened in practice.
And you want to get him all the way back healthy because of what he can bring just to the whole offense, passing game, everything else.
What is the timetable on when we start to be concerned this season with Jameson Williams?
I didn't care at all. I thought he actually played okay. I know PFF had him graded terribly, but I thought he was fine. I mean, the drop wasn't great. He probably should have just throttled it down and sat down in the zone. But that's just like timing. That's just like
and the one catch that he had where he got like no yards, or again, that was Goff throwing it way too late, and Marvin Jones missing a block.
Right. And then the one screen he had that he caught one, and he was like maybe like a foot away from really ripping that one off, because he had like 9 yards on that play, and like he was a broken tackle away from probably having a touchdown.
That was the Goff bad throw, and then the other screen was a miss. Marvin Jones just missed his block. He didn't get to his dude.
So I'm not concerned at all, really. And he had a really nice block that sprung David Montgomery's touchdown, which is nice to see.
The guy's block, but it's at the same time, it's like, okay, we lost draft capital for this, and we got a wide receiver at 12 not to block. He's got to stretch the field.
Yeah. So, but he also opens things up for other guys because his speed is a problem, right? So especially as he gets more and more into the feel of things, right? They sprinkled him in. He played quite a bit last week, actually, but they he wasn't in there on third down. He obviously did very much because he obviously doesn't have that full package yet. They'll get him in there and get him figured out, and then I think he just needs to get like consecutive games where he has like 4 or 5 grabs, right, and kind of get him going. I guess a timeline I'm being concerned. I mean, yeah, if he looks like that every week for like 4 or 5 straight weeks, then yeah, you'd be concerned at that point. I'm not concerned yet because I just think they didn't really use. I mean, they're just trying to sprinkle him in right now, and they'll find ways to use him beyond just flipping him screens or just running him on a deep route. They'll find ways to use him. Ben Johnson's too good of a player.
He's the hope that I have. That's like, okay, you're out Jahmyr Gibbs, which is a valuable number 2 running back, but like you still have that speed back now with Jameson Williams that Gibbs also helped stretch the field with while Jameson was out. So it's like, okay, well, you hope that he can continue to open things up for the rest of the offense if he can stretch the field.
And it's not always just him getting catches, like you said, like you just mentioned. Like if they have to cover him and keep him from going over the top, like that opens up a lot of stuff for a guy like St. Brown and Khalif Raymond and Josh
Sam Laporta.
Sam Laporta, yep. Gibbs, when he comes back in the passing game, that opens him up underneath. Like that opens up a lot of stuff. But I do think he needs to establish himself as a threat to catch the ball deep as well and break some stuff deep as well.
Contested catches too, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't need to be like Tyreek Hill doesn't have that many contested catches. You don't need that, right? The speed is what it is, but he needs to just become a better, more savvy route runner, and just understand the game a little bit better. And I think a lot of that just comes with playing more. I mean, he just hasn't played at all, really. So
yeah, he ran a total of 14 routes last week and like 38 snaps.
So pretty good. Not terrible. I would expect more of the same this next week, if not maybe a little bit more, depending on how they cover him too.
What is your prediction on this game score wise?
I'm gonna say Lions do get 20. I'm gonna say 23. So a couple field goals.
Riley
Right?
Patterson 4-3 field goals.
Yep. Yep. Um, to 13. I just don't anticipate the Bucs doing much on offense. They'll get a couple things.
Figure out like who would be because actually 23 is a pretty good score prediction. I could see Riley Patterson getting 2 field goals, and I'm going to say 2 touchdowns. So that was that get to 20.
I almost said 20, but I'm like, yeah, I'll give him another one.
Baker, I just think Campbell goes for it too much. 3 field goals is a stretch for Riley, but I'm going to say Baker's going to throw a touchdown. I don't know if they're going to. Yeah, maybe they get maybe they get a rushing touchdown off like good field position off a turnover. I think maybe like a fumble recovery within the red zone or something. So I'm going to say 2 touchdowns for them. I'm going to say 20-17. I'm going to make it pretty close.
Field goal too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're due for a close game. Some of these wins have just been absolutely.
I mean, I hope they just run, just destroy them. But I just don't see that happening with the Bucs defense. They don't. They're not a team that's going to get blown out very often. We even said it. I think even in our preview, we were like, this could be a team that's in a lot of games, but just doesn't have the offense to keep up with certain teams, and that still might be the case. But early on, they're being efficient enough, and that defense is really good. So yeah, I mean, this game actually concerns me a little bit because, like, on paper, the Lions should win, and maybe not win handily, but they should win. And this is going to be one that you're going to want at the end of the year. Not necessarily. I don't think this determines playoff fate, hopefully, or anything like that. But like, this is one that you're going to want because you're probably a better team on paper than this Bucs team.
I think you want to go on a run here too, just for the sake of carrying momentum while you have now a 2-game lead plus the tiebreaker on top of your second place team in the NFC North.
Yep.
So, that feels really good. You want to keep taking that momentum on while the getting's good, while the schedule looks relatively easy. So yeah, I think must win is a weird term, right? But you want to try to take this. It's not a must win because they still have a lead, but I think it can do a lot of good for them long term as a team if they can pull this one off.
Mm-hmm. This will be a tough game. This will be a physically demanding game. Not that
it's in Tampa too, isn't it?
Not that it is in Tampa. Not that every game isn't physically demanding, but this team's going to hit you. Like, this Tampa team they got some really good linebackers. They got the D line that is tough to block. The safeties come down and hit you. Like, this is going to be a physical game, and I'm guessing the Lions will be ready because Dan Campbell has done a great job of getting them ready. But like, yeah, I mean, this will be a test. I think this will be a definite test.
We can recap that game and then recap or preview future games. Trying to remember who's playing after. We're not hitting the gauntlet yet, right? We've got another cupcake after Indiana, Michigan State, right? Is it Michigan State next?
Cake, absolutely. Correct.
So
terrible
good,
team.
Terrible team. So another cupcake. I stand by what I said. And then the Lions will have to take on the Ravens in Baltimore. So two road games in a row before they get the Monday night game against the Raiders. And that also looks. I think this stretch here could be 2-2, and I'm okay with that.
I think they should go 3-1 if they want to be considered a legitimate.
It is three of these 4 games are road games, so it's something that
I think they should go 3 on paper, but they probably will go 2-2. And
I think 2-2 they still have a pretty handed lead. So in the North, so it's like I'm not over it, but yeah, 3-1 I think really sets you up nicely as an NFC North contender. So or not, and just an NFC title game contender. So, all right, yeah, we'll see you guys next week then.
See ya.